I know you can win with Daboll. I think the guy, and I've told everybody, Daniel Jones, and I've always liked Daniel Jones when they drafted him. I'm the only one that stuck up for that kid. Only one that stuck up for that kid. I think he has, not only do I think he's good, I think he's much better, much faster outside the pocket than Josh Allen. I don't think he has the arm strength as Josh Allen, but he's more accurate than people think. And I think he's fun to watch. And even though he fell on his own legs last year, which I couldn't stop laughing about, I mean, it was like a meme for a very long time. I think the kid's the real deal. What are your thoughts?
I couldn't agree more. I really think that he is. And everyone was saying he's like Eli Manning. Well, that includes everyone hating him at the beginning and probably throughout his career. But in between, he's going to have those golden moments where maybe he's got a Super Bowl run in him. Maybe he's got to. I think that he was the right type of guy for this offense. And I think now that there's been that foundation on the offensive line, you're getting back to, like you said, in the 80s, the 90s, and even with Brandon Jacobs in the 2000s, smash mouth football is Giants' identity. And now with Saquon Barkley really, really getting to run the ball, he's healthy, he has the right protection. That is so huge for the offense. And it gives Daniel Jones more flexibility where he's not dependent on every play. They know that they could pick up 6 or 7 with Barkley. They don't need to go to Jones on every play. And then when they do, he just has more range. And you're seeing it now. You're seeing his ability to run. I don't think that that's a coincidence that once the Giants improve the running game, their quarterback is also more mobile. I think that he's wonderful. I think that also he's shown a huge initiative in leadership this season. And that's something you didn't get at first. And of course, he's young, he's new to the league, but now that he's kind of got his feet settled, he's proving why he was drafted by the New York Football Giants. I think that he's really bringing something, a very exciting and creative dynamic to the team. And going back to like what you said about maybe Odell Beckham Jr., I don't think that there's a good mesh there. I think that Daniel Jones, I think they're taking the franchise in one direction. I think bringing back someone like Beckham, who, let's be honest, he is a case. He has his off-the-field moments, as we've seen many, many times. If you recall when he attempted to urinate in the end zone in Cleveland, phrasing that as politely as I can, I don't think you need that. I think that you've got the winning pieces, and it proves. Raise your hand if you thought the Giants are going to be 6-1 at this point in time. Yeah, I don't think anyone, listeners included, have
By
their
the
hands
way,
up right now.
I had the Giants winning 9 games this year. I did, and I said the Giants make the playoffs. I have said it, and the reason why is just the schedule. The schedule was so favorable for the New York Giants, and I did believe that they're a lot better than people say they are. The only thing that worries me about them is if they make the playoffs, which they will, they don't have a predominant wide receiver that can make plays in the open field when need be. I don't think Slayton's the guy. We know Galladay isn't.
Good riddance.
Keep
him away from the field as much as possible.
I don't know really what is out there on this roster that you could say, oh, I'm scared of this guy. Bellinger looks like he's a player. I think he's a good player. I was very surprised on the turnout who he is as a tight end. I think he's shown me. He was a surprise. I don't know where he was drafted, but
4th round.
He's fantastic. He really is fun to watch.
You know what? I'll give you that. There could be something in the receiving core where maybe an upgrade is coming, hopefully before the trade deadline, and maybe this is the calm before the storm. But like I said, even though there's not that guy, that threat, whatever's going on is working. And I'm a firm believer in if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And that applies to my professional life. That applies to my love life. That applies to everything.
Well, we're not going to get into your love life, okay? Unless you want to talk about it. Speedy's love life.
No,
Speedy's love life
is
not very good. But
See, at least you know. Now we can stop talking about it.
Oh my God. We are talking
to my point.
Oh, God.
Just like my girlfriend, I think the New York Giants are wonderful.
There we go. I see that you're an Islander fan, and I love what I saw with the Rangers, and I'm sure Speedy didn't because he's a Ranger fan. Sorokin is the real deal. I've said this over and over and over again to Islander fans that this kid is the future of this organization. This is the guy that we're going to be jumping and riding on his back. If we have any chance of winning a Stanley Cup, it has to be him. Not Varlamov, none of that garbage that we've seen over the years. And every single year, it seems like he plays the Rangers, and he always loses. And Sorokin has played 2 games against the Rangers, and he's won both of them. And the Rangers have scored 1 goal in 2 games against Sorokin. That just tells you how much better he is than Varlamov is against the Rangers. I mean, the Islanders have started off slow. It's still very early. There's a lot of people that don't think the Islanders are a playoff team. I thought they were out of their minds. This is one of the best defenses in the league. They have one of the best goaltenders in the league. Very well respected around the league, by the way, Sorokin is. Where do you see this team? They need offense. I mean, Lou made a big mistake not doing anything in the offseason, but he definitely gave Barzal what they needed to. But Barzal hasn't scored any goals because he doesn't have any weapons around him. What are your thoughts, the Islanders?
So let's backtrack. And like you're saying, a lot of people were very skeptical of the Islanders coming in to this season. And I can understand why. The Barry Trotz move was a bombshell, and not in a good way. And I mean, and it's not a knock on Lane Lambert. I think he's doing a fine job with the team and stepping into very, very big shoes to fill, not just in replacing Trotz, but hey, this is a team that made the Eastern Conference Finals 2 seasons in a row. Now we got to get back there right now. We've got our new gorgeous arena. We better have some games in May and June there. So I see why people didn't think that this was going to be the year at first. But you look at the offense, it is starting to click. Yes, it's slow moving. Maybe Barzal is having a slow start, but I've got more confidence in the world in him. I think that he just knows when to show up in very clutch moments. He's still young. And, think about where you are, 24, 25. You make mistakes, but that doesn't mean you're not capable. And obviously it's very, very different when you get paid millions of dollars, professional athlete, all that stuff. But it's the same concept. He's young. Give him a little breathing room, because I can think of more than enough times where Matt Barzal has saved a game, saved a playoff series with his heroics. But to your point also about the offense, Kiefer Bellows going on waivers and being claimed by the Philadelphia Flyers.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little taken back by that personally. You think about the forwards that they want to carry, and Ross Johnston, who's an enforcer. And don't get me wrong, I know for the past 2 seasons, he's really been grinding and showing that he's more than a glorified goon. Not that I think he's a goon, but that he's more than just that fighting, hit checking role. But he makes the team over Kiefer Bellows, who's someone that, was drafted pretty high by the Islanders. And I don't. We'll see how that plays out, but that took me back a little bit, especially with Lou saying that one of the reasons for moving on from Trotz is to get a new voice in there, and you almost automatically translate that to you're going to see more of the Islanders' young talent like Oliver Wahlstrom.
He played Varlamov too much. I think that was a lot. We saw too much of Varlamov last year. Even when he came back from injury, it was too much of him. He should have played Sorokin. I have no idea what Trotz was doing. But I think that had a lot to do with it. I really do.
I think that could be that there wasn't enough distribution on the goalie side. I could definitely see that, especially, Sorokin is intended, as you said, he's supposed to be the future of the franchise. He is supposed to be the positive version of Rick DiPietro, what we were supposed to get in the mid-2000s. No, really, like when you think about it, and you can – well, you could trace the Islanders' issues back to a lot of things in a lot of years. But, one of the big ones is that they never had that franchise goalie. And you look at the Rangers, they've always had it, whether it was Richter, whether it was Lundqvist. Now, obviously, with Igor Shesterkin, they're going.
Don't forget about Van Beesbrook.
Oh, yeah, John Van Beesbrook. Yeah. Florida Panther back in the days when they made the playoffs and won more than one series.
That's why I'm not a Ranger fan anymore, by the way. Just so you know, I'm not a Ranger fan because the Rangers decided to part ways with him and keep Richter. And I think Van Beesbrook would have won that Stanley Cup if he played in '94. So
wait, so you're an Islanders converted fan?
Yes, when I was 11 years old. I was 11 years old. I was a Van Beesbrook fan. I did all his training camps, and I was always a Beezer fan. I grew up, worshiping him. When he was traded to Vancouver, believe it or not, and they had Kurt McLean there, they put him on waivers, and he was the number 1 choice in the expansion draft to the Florida Panthers. And then I followed him to Florida. And he was with the Panthers for a while, and he went on 96, where he was just unstoppable. The year of the rat where they went to the Stanley Cup Finals and got swept by Colorado, but he was the reason why they were there. It really was the transition when he went to Philadelphia for a little bit, and then he went to the Islanders. And when he went to the Islanders, I decided, you know what? He was there for a year and a half. I said, I'm going to stick with the Islanders. They stink, but I'm going to stick with the Islanders. Then he went to Then he went to the Devils, and he finished his career with the Devils. He's the only player in New York hockey history that played for every one of the tri-state teams.
Hit the trifecta, yeah.
Yes, he's the only one that's ever done it. And he told me that when I interviewed him at the draft in Dallas a couple of years ago. He told me straight out. He says, I'm the only one. And I feel that I have a record that will set in stone. I say, you are the winningest American goalie of all time. So that's enough, okay? So I just let him know that. But nevertheless, yeah. Well, the Islanders, I think, are in a position where I think they can make the playoffs. It's the defense and the goaltending that has to stand up and stand forward. And you saw that last night against the Rangers. But, Speedy, good.
Yeah, I was going to ask about there were a lot of rumors with the offseason moves that they could have made and ended up not doing. Do you see something like that at the trade deadline still, or are you kind of the same approach as the Giants? If it's working, stick with it.
Oh, no, the Islanders and Giants, those are very separate entities. I want to make that very, very clear. It was a very disappointing summer from the perspective of an Islanders fan. Again, I am really using my etiquette to try to be polite here because I remember I was on a train home from Manhattan when I found out that Johnny Gaudreau would not be coming to Nassau County, or that Matthew Tkachuk would not be coming to Nassau, and the list goes on and on. This is a theme in my life that I've heard many, many times. And I think going back to the Barzal signing, it felt really good in the wake of all that to know you had some commitment. You had someone who was legitimately interested in carrying this franchise to just a new high, which I believe is totally achievable within, if not this season, in the next couple. And do they need to do some things? Do they obviously need to look for upgrades on offense? Of course. And will this trade deadline pan out? The hopeful person in me wants to say yes, but I know better, man. I know better. I wouldn't guarantee it. And I've been also thinking a lot about how they handled Zdeno Chara last season. Because at first I was a little excited about the move. I like that, starts with the Islanders, ends with the Islanders, because, Islanders also have a huge history of drafting these really, really talented players who go elsewhere and have really successful careers, but we don't have to get it.
The dark days of Mike
It
Milbury.
hurts sometimes. You know what I'm talking about?
The dark days of Mike
Islander fan.
Milbury.
I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. Trust me.